Hello, I'm Ellen, and this is our monthly reading. We are about to step into February, and the energies are definitely changing. So, we'll be drawing some cards. I already have a deck ready to go, and we'll definitely be doing some channeling, which, well, I'm not going to qualify it. We'll be doing some channeling. We'll see how that goes. It's the first time that I have actually recorded myself visually channeling for public viewing. So, it's the energy of this year is really sort of a go big or go home energy. It's a mastery energy, which equals go big or go home, and that's for me what this is about. Time to stop judging myself, time to stop putting aside that which I know needs to happen, waiting for the ideal time from my ego's perspective. So, I'm going to just dive in here. We are working this month with Chris-Anne Donnelly's Sacred Creators Oracle deck. This is the book that goes along with that. It's a beautiful card deck. If you are someone who likes oracle cards and someone who perhaps is a creative or is an entrepreneur or just likes different styles of oracle decks, this might be for you. So I know you can get it from her website if you just look up Chris-Anne, and Chris, CHRIS-ANNE. Probably you could just look up Sacred Creators Oracle Deck. You will find it, I believe, available both through her website and also perhaps via Goop, via Nordstrom. Okay? So, it's a nice, thick deck. The cardstock is lovely. It doesn't bend easily, which I really appreciate. Sometimes cards can be a little bit thin. So let's find out what we have here. That's our first one. So when I choose cards, I receive, when I know it's time to stop, I receive a definite sensation up in this area, sometimes right across, like I just heard across the bridge of my nose from there up. And that's my, you could call it a high sign, that the card that is looking for, is that one too? Yeah. For viewing is ready to be chosen. Oh, and we have 3 cards. So we'll start there. Now the next thing is, although we have an order here, so let me, I don't want to look at them yet. I'm going to hold them up like this because I don't want to look at them until it's time to look at them. So this was the first one, second one, third one. That does not necessarily mean that that's the way my guides want me to bring them forward. So let's find out. What is card, I'll do it this way, which is card number 1? Okay, so the second one is actually card 1. That's the first one we'll look at. Which one is card 2? The third one is card 2, which means the first one is card 3. There's a reason for everything. All right, so anything else before we get started here? By the way, probably when I either look down or look up and ask a question, I'm definitely asking my guides. So just so you know. Anything else? And first we would introduce ourselves to you and explain that when we are channeling, Ellen's facial features may change, which is what causes her discomfort. And we would ask that you listen and that you not be interpreting the facial expressions as anything other than an extension of the message. So, well, that's an introduction then to how I channel. Um, I have a lot of energy uh, running through the upper half of my head right now. And part of that is I feel like there's more that wishes to be said. However, I just want to mention you may hear outside noise outside of this room. Right now, I can hear an answering machine, and I apologize for that. Please, it's like with anything, with meditation, for example. Unless we are somehow miraculously in I just heard a padded room, which is so padded that no external noises can be heard. It's impossible to, in a regular setting such as this, my office slash bedroom, to completely eradicate outside noises. It isn't going to happen. So, so it's really interesting that this is coming up, and I'm not even going to cut it out of this video. I'm going to make sure it stays here. It feels really important to address that. Because also, if you're another card reader or intuitive reader, life coach, whatever you may do, this is real life. It would be perhaps ideal for us from an egoic standpoint to have a really blank canvas to work with, meaning, again, no external noises at all, no external interruptions of any sort. And yet, the fact is, they can be wonderful lessons for us in maintaining our own focus. Okay? So, something to consider. All right, anything else I'm supposed to mention? I'm being pointed at my pendulum. Am I supposed to talk about that right now? Okay, so there's a lot going on here. Hopefully you won't be taking up too much of your time. Hopefully you'll find this interesting and maybe educational. Let's see. Okay, so pendulum. This is my pendulum, whose current name is Patience. And I forget how many names Patience has had. I'm not sure. As you can see already, Patience is moving. And what are we doing with this right now? Are we clearing the energy? No, just showing an example. Waking up, I just heard, which is really funny. It's funny to suppose that a pendulum might sleep when it isn't in use. And I haven't used it in a couple of days, so hey, maybe, yes, waking up. I believe probably the reason that I've been asked to bring this out, let me see if I can actually, I'm going to adjust this a tiny bit. There we go. It's a long chain. All right. One thing I do the end of every month, and here we are, it's the end of the month, January 31st, is I do a clearing. I'm going to put my arm down, my shoulder will get tired. I do a clearing of my business's energy. I do a clearing of my overall life energy. So, whereas every night, as I'm closing the day, I clear my own energy, my space's energy, the property's energy, with life in total. I'm being shown a circle, the circle of life. That's something that I have on my calendar to do the end of every month, just to make sure that things are being left behind, I guess you could say, rather than being dragged into the new energy of a new month. So if that resonates with you, perhaps this is something that you will want to do too. So when it comes to my pendulum, as you saw, well, people have different yes and no responses. My yes is vertical from my perspective, no is horizontal from my perspective. And so when I ask my pendulum to please clear the energy from my business, chances are it isn't going to go just horizontal or vertical. So as you can see, it's creating a bit of a circle, although I just heard it's creating a diagram that's actually reminding me quite a bit of what soul energy looks like. When and I don't know if it's saying yes or if it's adjusting, as it's just gone into what's a yes response, and yet also it will use a swing like this to redistribute its energy so it can, as it's beginning to do now, go in another direction. So I don't know, there's a diagonal swing. It does that periodically too, sometimes to change direction. Yeah, and it's changing direction again. So now it's doing a horizontal swing in the other direction. Diagonal, I guess it's diagonal, not horizontal. And it's complete. So that's just as an example for you of how you can, in effect, reset your energy, the energy of your life, the energy of your work, your business, before stepping into a new month. You could certainly also use sage with that intention. I love the visual aspect of the pendulum. I love seeing what it does. It's different every time. It's just very interesting to me. Sometimes it's a lot longer than what you just saw, and I'm really grateful it wasn't. So, anything else to do with the pendulum today? No. Okay, so we'll put that back. All right. Are we ready for the cards? Yes. So let's see what card number 1 is. Change makers make waves. Change makers make waves. So, what is it about change makers make waves? And understand, this is a time in your country's history that requires great change, that requires women and men who are understanding there is need for change to make change. This will, for some, prove challenging, as with any change comes some level of discomfort for the ego, and sometimes there is a creation of a ripple effect for those who are in relationship with the change maker. And with this, we would ask for you to open yourself to accepting change must happen and you must make it. So, okay. So before I get into a little more interpretation here, I want to mention, I recognize and acknowledge there was some kind of a pause or a skip, as I just heard. It's almost like skipping an LP. Dating myself here. Where the word country came out, and then my ego was questioning it. Because I would assume that perhaps the word world would be used instead. However, again, there's a purpose for the choice of word, and I need to accept that. So there you go. So change makers make waves. In some ways, we're all change makers, some obviously more than others. When we think of change makers, we probably think of people who are very much out in the public eye, who we see on the cover of Time magazine, who we see on TV, on the news, whatever. And change makers can be the person that you get your coffee from in the morning. Change makers can be your children's bus driver. And they just have different ways of making change. And they're showing me coins, just really funny. So when we're talking about a barista, sure, it could be said that they need to make change that way, but obviously we're talking about the sort of change that creates an impact first upon the person who is creating some sort of action to make change, and then upon their community, and then even perhaps further out. There's a whole, I just heard that butterfly effect. There's a whole butterfly effect that goes on. So my question to my guides is, why is it important to talk about change makers at this time, aside from the fact, understanding, acknowledging that obviously things do need to change. They need to change in the US. If you're listening from another country, they probably need to change there too, to some degree, in some way. So we notice that there is a compelling need for easing the ego and reasoning with the soul energy. And with the soul energy, understand there is a generation from love. Okay. It isn't an unfamiliar subject with me. This is something that my guides bring up a lot, because I can get very much in my ego about certain things, and I see it in others too, and of course we're reflections of each other. So changing how we bring ourselves into the world, how we approach the world, how we view the world. When we view the world through the lens of our soul, which, as was just said, is generated from love, then harsh judgments, or any judgments of any kind, disappear. Instead, we become compassionate observers, and through that lens, we can more clearly see, I just heard, what cords need cutting. That goes right along with what needs energy healing. And it could be also as very basic and beautiful as who needs a hug, or a smile, or an I love you, or an I see you. That elegant, as you just heard. So we aren't talking about huge gestures of change. We aren't talking about throwing a boulder into the pond. We're talking about dropping a pebble into the pond. And each time we do that, more ripples are created. And each time more ripples are created, they are magnified, amplified, and they're added to by others who are doing similar. That's how change happens. It would be nice to think that some huge cosmic magic wand could come in and wave and just magically change everything. We're certainly supported in what could be considered magical ways, and yet we need to start from the ground up, and that ground is coming from a place of love, coming from a place of compassionate witnessing. So that's how we make waves. That's how those ripples become waves. We don't have to think that unless we, are making some kind of a tsunami style change, that we aren't making a difference. That isn't the case at all. That smile, that hug, that I love you, that makes a difference. You make a difference. And that makes you a change maker. Okay? All right, well, gee. So our second card is successive transformation. Successive transformation. Here we go. Loving the pendulums. Okay, so what is it about successive transformation? When there are changes made, when change occurs, transformation ensues. The transformation will be successive according to the changes which are created. With successive transformation, there comes more knowing, more feeling, more understanding, and also a greater capacity for intuitive abilities. With this, consider how a ball of light can open and be a wonderful illumination. This is what you be, and this is what brings change, then transformation. Okay, we're done for the moment with the channeling. So, change and transformation, they could be said to be the same thing. However, the way it's being shown to me is, again, change makers make waves. And we're talking about someone intentionally taking that pebble and dropping it into the pond. And then, continuing to do that in order to make an impact. And with transformation, that is the result of dropping those pebbles. That is the result of being the change maker. The transformation is probably more internal than external. The thing about that is, when we transform internally, we inevitably transform externally. And then that external change, I just heard, redistributes even further outward. It could be perhaps perceived as a slower process than dropping those pebbles, because when we're working from the inside out, it's unlikely that we will notice in minute detail what's happening transformatively until we reach a point where we're realizing that we're doing things differently, seeing things differently. And then we can look back and say, whoa, there was point A and here I am at point B. And it could be that that took a month. It could be that it took a year. The time factor doesn't matter. What matters is the actual transformation. Okay? And the thing is, transformation builds upon transformation. And that's where we get that successive transformation. So once we begin transforming, there will be more transformation. It's much like that ripple effect from dropping those pebbles in the pond. Is there anything else to say about that? No. Okay. I hope that makes sense. This feels like deep stuff for February, and I'm thinking, well, you know, January was pretty deep too, although January was much more about laying the foundation for what was to come. And now we're getting into what needs to be done. So we've laid the foundation in our own corner of the world, in our own microscopic place. And now we're stepping out and doing something with it, doing something about it. Okay? So that's what February feels like. That's, yeah. A good bit of February is tied into that. All right? So our third card for February's energy is Creator Genes. Creator Genes. So, what is it about Creator Genes? And in this, understand that your genetic makeup is fully engaged with creation, creativity, more so women than men, as women, of course, create life. In this, ask yourself, what can I create? What creator am I? Where did I come from? Who am I now? Who will I be? And devise a creative contract with yourself to bring forth this creation. Okay, I just asked silently. Anything else to say about that? I was actually hoping there might be because I'm wrapping my head around it a bit. So, yes, we are genetically encoded to be creators, especially women. And even so, beyond that aspect, we are here to create something. Whether it's to create a better life for ourselves and our families, whether it's to create a better world, a more compassionate and loving world, a more healthy world, because we know Mother Earth she's in need of healing. No matter what, we feel that we're here to create in our lives. We're asked to more fully step into that and be more intentional with it. And that's what Creator Genes is really about. It's certainly acknowledging that creative aspect of ourselves, whatever it looks like, and yet not just acknowledge, do something with it, be something with it. And that comes right back around to change makers make waves. Creators are change makers. They walk hand in hand. So our invitation, it feels like, this month is, okay, well, do you want to go ahead and speak again? No. I heard get real, or get really real. about what we're here to create. So yeah, so this month, acknowledge that you're a change maker and notice where you can be creating change. Notice where you can be or how you can be supporting change. And then begin to be more aware of, more conscious of how you are transforming yourself. Be more intentional with that. How are you transforming yourself? How is being a change maker transforming you? How else might you need to transform? How else might you want to transform? And remember to start from the inside. And then acknowledge your creativity. Acknowledge your creator genes and put them to work. Put them into service. They're there to be used. And create something, I just heard responsible. Create something accountable. Create something you know with all your heart can be helpful, hopeful, fruitful. Okay. So that is February's energy, which is fascinating. And this is something too, that there's an invitation to draw your own cards to go along with these, because where this is a general reading, when you get into a more finite way of looking at this energy, you want to kind of hone it in for yourself. What does it mean for you personally? So if you have your own tarot or oracle cards, then maybe you'll want to draw a card for each of the cards that I do here, and with the intention that you will discover what that means for you specifically. Or maybe you're a journaler, so journal out what each of these cards and their general messages mean for you. If you have this deck, maybe you'll want to source the book and see what else there is there that might help you to hone in on, I just heard, what your own signal is in regards to these cards. So I'll be honest, I never use the books. They're nice to have, but I never use them. So anything else to say today? I was asked to bring a desk calendar that I keep on my dresser and change daily. It's one of those daily calendars. And I'm wondering if I'm supposed to. Yeah, okay. So this seems to fall in line too. As I relax and focus on the beautiful things in my life, I open myself up to my own healing powers. So I'll turn that around so you can see it, because the image is very nice. As I relax and focus on the beautiful things in my life, I open myself up to my own healing powers. And I would say that transformation aspect, the transformative aspect, is definitely tied into healing. And again, healing from the inside out. So, I believe that is it for today. I feel like that's plenty for today. And anything else to say before we end this video? Okay. And we thank you for viewing. We thank you for feeling. We thank you for hearing. And also, we thank you for opening your heart and having a desire for opening yourself to your energy of the soul. Well, that was lovely. So there's our sign off. And until next week for our weekly reading, take good care. Lots of love.